Hey there, Econ folks. This is Mr. Hooker. We are into the meat of economics, supply and demand. So, first, I'd like to talk about the last video of chapter two, real quick. So, I know I mentioned there would be another video, video number three, but then I got out of it and realized I was sitting on the last slide. So, I just didn't bother to go back and do another video. Um, I was on the last slide and it was just kind of a filler slide, so I just didn't bother to do another video. So that's the reason there were only two videos when I said there would be a third. There you go. Now you know. So supply and demand. So if you took if you told people you were taking an economics course, one of the things they probably said, so you're going to learn about supply and demand, huh? So here it is. You're about to learn about supply and demand. So for this whole chapter, we're just going to assume competitive markets. And by competitive markets, I pretty much mean purely competitive markets, where we have many buyers, many sellers, same good or service. Nobody can influence the price. In other words, we have all price takers. Um, that is just us hitting the easy button, as I mentioned last lecture. So we're just hitting the easy button. It makes it so much easier to do. Otherwise, you get into other things and it's just really weird. We'll get into those things in the micro class. Macro, you've probably already seen those things. So, the supply and demand model is the model of how competitive markets behave. There's five basic elements to that. You've got a supply curve, a demand curve, the factors that shift the demand curve, and the factors that shift the supply curve. You also have a market equilibrium, which is where the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. And then we have changes in market equilibrium. So, as we mentioned in previous chapters, there is always pressure toward equilibrium as well. So, we're always moving toward that equilibrium. So, just note that. All right. So, let's start with supply. Supply is the ability and willingness to produce or sell a specific quantity of a good or service at alternative prices, ceteris paribus. Now remember, ceteris paribus is the all else being equal so, assumption. So we're just assuming that all this other stuff in the world is going to remain the same. I have a vertical price, a horizontal quantity, and I want to know that if I change price, that is the thing that changed quantity supplied. That's really all I want to know. So let's break the rest of this down. Ability and willingness. Now, in supply, that's not really a big deal because I am dealing with firms. Remember, on supply, I'm typically dealing with firms. Now, if it's a labor market, I'm dealing with people, but normally we're going to think of that as firms. So, do you have the ability? Can you produce a good? And do you want to produce a good? Now, the number one motive for all firms is to maximize profit. So, heck yeah, if they are in business, they want to produce and sell a good. Okay. The question really is more about ability, and ability tied to this next point is, and that is specific quantity. Now, it comes in 2 points. It comes in two pieces. Number one, for startups, if you are just starting out and you're in grandma's garage, your mom's garage, whoever's garage, and you get a very large order, can you really logistically produce this large order? Sometimes that answer is no, in which case you do not have the ability to produce. You want to produce it, but you don't have the ability to produce it, in which case you do not have supply. You cannot supply that order. Two, some companies have really bad load management. So, load management, or sometimes called capacity management, is how you manage how much you are producing. So, you should never be producing at 100% of capacity. Really, you shouldn't be even at 95% capacity. The sweet spot is somewhere between 85 and 90. so that if you get this large order, you can ramp up and go. Like I can ramp it up and bam, I have produced this order. Otherwise, they're going to my competitor. So, do you have that ability to produce this order? The answer needs to be yes. If you're an established company, the answer should always, and I do mean always, be yes. Some of that comes to capacity management. All right. And so there is that specific quantity. So that specific quantity, for the most part, is tied to ability. And so, like, can you produce 500? Can you produce 1,000? Can you produce 5,000? Can you produce 10,000? Can you produce 100,000 units? We need to know, can you make these goods for us? If you can't, I'll find somebody who can, and they will be the ones to get paid. So, can you produce these goods or services at alternative prices? Now, this at alternative prices clause is really just a BS clause. It will also appear in the demand definition. It just means, will you produce and sell this at market price? Like, great, you made it, but are you willing to sell it at market price? So, we're going to talk about cars for this one. So, like Ford, they don't make the Ford Focus anymore, but let's go back to the Ford Focus. And if they were making the Ford Focus and then they said, like, we want to sell the Ford Focus for $100,000. There was no version of the Ford Focus that was worth $100,000. There's even, like, not even a platinum or titanium version that would be worth $100,000. None. So it just, you can't do that. You can't say it. So y'all need to, they just have to get off of that one. And then ceteris paribus, all else being equal. Okay. So supply represents the behavior of sellers. We have a supply schedule, which shows how much of the good or service would be supplied at different prices. The curve shows the quantity supplied at various prices. The schedule is numbers. It's everything in a table. The curve is a graph. That's pictures. So we got numbers, we got pictures. Some of you are numbers people, some of you are pictures people. I got you covered either way. We are good. So the quantity supplied is the quantity the producers are willing and able to sell at a particular price. Okay? So we are going to get kind of picky about language. Supply is not equal to quantity supplied. There is a difference between those two words or those two phrases. So we'll get kind of picky about that. So supply is an upward sloping curve. So note here, we are looking at Uber rides, and at 1250, um, the quantity of Uber rides supplied is 800. On up to $14, there would be 1,160 supplied. So this shows you the whole idea. At low prices, suppliers or firms would not really want to supply a whole lot of the product or the good or service, but at high prices, they are willing to throw it out there. Like they are going to throw it on the street, see what you can do. Um, but as we know as consumers, we're not really willing to buy a lot at high prices, right? So this is the way this works. If that curve shifts to the left, so basically, let's look back at this. All right. I'm going to see if my pen will work on this. And it doesn't. All right. So it's not going to work on that. Better. Well, maybe it did. All right. So if we have that, we've got a upward sloping supply curve. We've got price here. I've got quantity here, right? So if I have 2 points, we'll call them A and B. All right. So if I move from A to B, I've got P1 and P2, Q1 and Q2. All right. So what we're dealing with is that what happened is that price went up. This happened first. And because price went up, quantity supplied went up. So it is not the quantity supplied went up and then price went up. Price goes up, and because price rises, the firms look at it and go, "Ooh, we can make more money. I think we will sell more. We will put more out there for us. We'll put more out there for the customers. We'd like to make money." So, because of that, two things happen. Remember, this is a competitive market. There are no barriers to entry and exit. So, because the price goes up, firms that are already in the market, some of them will increase their capacity. And two, some firms that weren't in the market, they look in the market and they go, "Ooh, yeah, I can do that. That's easy." So they get in. And so they start selling more. They start selling whatever good that is. Okay. So that is what that looks like. All right. Um, that is the way supply works. It's pretty simple. It is the way that all happens. Not really a problem, but that movement along that curve, one curve, 2 points, is called a change in quantity supplied. Now, if I go S to S2, that is a change in supply because now I have two curves of which no points are the same on those two curves. And S to S2, because I moved to the right, is an increase. If I went left, it would be a decrease. So right, increase, left, decrease. And I don't care whether it's supply or demand. Right is an increase, left is a decrease. Right, increase, left, decrease. Always, always. Okay? So right, increase, left, decrease. All right? Roll with that. So that is the way they will always work. All right. All right. Back to this. So this, as you move to the left, is a decrease. So a shift to the left is a decrease. I have a whole nother set, right? So that A to B that they have right there is a movement along the supply curve. It's not the same as a shift of the supply curve as they point out. So a shift is a whole different thing. You have a whole new set of curves. There's the only thing that will, the thing that causes a movement is a change in price. So if I have a change in price, that will cause the movement. The thing that causes the shift, and that's what I showed you on the whiteboard. But the thing that causes the shift is a change in the determinants of supply. And we will roll through those here in a minute. So if you have a change in one of the determinants of supply, we will have a shift. Okay. So my take on all of this, on the law of supply and all of that, is firms are greedy. It's not a bad thing. Firms are greedy in the pursuit of what we call normal profits. If they didn't believe they could make money selling you a good, they wouldn't make it. You wouldn't have the goods, and you want those. So there's the thing. So here are the shifts of supply. There are 5 of them. input prices, price of related goods or services, technology, expectations, and number of producers. All right. So I'm going to stop right here and we will get back and go through these in video number 2.